on its way.
Okay, thanks, Josh.
You're welcome.
Transcription has started. Recording has started. Okay, I'll turn it over to you, Tom.
Okay, very good. I'd like to welcome everybody today on this, and those of you that haven't been washed away. Like to do, first of all, let's go around and introduce everybody. Tom Frank, Chair.
Adrian Katz, Vice Chair.
Bruce Post, soon to be ex-member.
Maxa Ewens, soon to be ex-member from Charlotte.
Okay, anybody did?
Linda just joined.
Oh, Linda's here. And she,
You made it, Linda.
how you
I
doing,
did.
Linda?
Okay, my house is fine. My road was washed out, but they fixed it already. And Weston is terrible. I'm outside of Weston, up on a hillside, up above Weston. Debbie is also up above Weston, but Weston itself is a disaster. The wonderful theater we have that got flooded in Irene is flooded again. The bridge is washed out. I mean, it's just, yeah. I gather that you can get north, you can get toward the north, and Londonderry, of course, is awful, which is to our south. So it's a mess. But the sun is out, you know?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, just sprinkled here. Okay, so Linda's here. Deb, are you here? She said she could get on. She said she couldn't get out of her house because of the driveway being washed out.
Right.
But she had power.
I'm not seeing her yet.
Okay. How about James?
No sight of James either.
So we're missing 2. So we have 5
So,
here.
So I just got a note from Debbie. She says she's waiting to get on the library call. Are you in? So has she logged in and we don't have her yet?
We're not seeing her here yet.
Okay.
On our
I'll just tell her that.
Teams.
She may want to disconnect and try again.
Yeah.
That's sometimes the waiting is sometimes a sign that the connection didn't work.
Okay, I just told her that.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Okay, wait for Deb to. I know she's coming in, but no James, right?
We haven't seen James yet. I think he's likely to call in rather than to attend via Teams because the office of the department, the building that our office is in, is closed in Barry. So we let him know by various emails, and I think he's aware of that and that he needs to call in.
So anybody else here? Josh is here from the library.
I'm here. I'm Kathy. I'm the Kathy Delneo, the state librarian and Department of Libraries Commissioner and Secretary to the board.
Okay.
I do have to mention that my home is along the North Branch, so my apartment. So if there's an evacuation order, I have stuff over here packed and I will need to leave the meeting. We have folks in the department who are recording, so I can secretary at a later date. You all could continue without me. I'll turn the camera off so you don't see me try to wrangle that very large cat that just walked through in the case of evacuation. I've trimmed her nails in advance of any potential capture.
Oh, aren't you prepared? Well done.
Not really.
You don't have your toothbrush, but boy, you've taken care of the cat, right?
I hope.
And I gotta.
So there are a number of other folks from the department here. Do you want to start, Jeanette? Just say hello.
Yep. Good morning, Jeanette Schaefer. Sorry, I've been up all night. What is my role? Kathy, help me out here.
Assistant State Librarian in the Library Advancement Team.
Thank you so much. Sorry about that.
No worries.
Hi, good morning. We just got power back, so I'm pleased to be here. This is Tom McMurdo, Assistant State Librarian for Information and Access.
And here's Debbie.
Debbie's on.
I'm Josh Muse, consultant for library technology.
Let's see,
I can go
Lauren,
next.
go on here.
Yep, Lauren Kelly, consultant for technical services at the Department of Libraries. Good morning.
And I'm Jonathan Clark, the consultant for children and teen services at the Department of Libraries.
Ah, welcome, Jonathan.
I'm Kevin Unrath. I'm the consultant for library operations. Good to see you all.
Ah,
Nice to meet you.
New man. Everybody's glad to see you. Right.
And April Shaw, Librarian of Government Services.
I think that's everyone that I'm seeing logged in right now. So we have department staff and we have Board of Libraries members. I feel like we just lost Tom.
I see TM still listed, so.
You do? Okay.
No, he dropped off the call.
Yeah.
Did.
Yeah.
Oh, which Tom? Our Tom? Well, you're our
Tom
Tom.
Frank.
Tom,
You're
Tom
our Tom
Frank.
too, Tom.
I could be Tom 1 or Tom 2. I'm okay with that. But
TF just dropped off the call.
Yeah.
So I think in this situation, we might ask our vice chair to move to the next agenda item. Here he comes. Let him back in.
Okay.
Tom, are you back with us? Tom Frank?
I think you're muted if you're on.
There we go.
Okay.
Okay, there we go. I'm back. Yeah. It kicked me
Great.
off. I'm back. Okay. Did Deb get on?
Yes, there she is.
Ah, okay. Are you on there, Deb?
Yes.
Ah, very good. So Deb is the
Oh.
last one on here. So welcome, everybody. Okay, the next thing, are there any changes to the agenda? And Maxie just emailed me and wanted to do trustee evaluation. I think you mean board member evaluation, right, Chuck?
Right.
To evaluate ourselves. Yeah. So we'll just bring that up to see how we're going to do that.
I have an agenda item too. I'd like to
Okay.
hear again from Kathy and you, Tom, about new members for the board.
Right. We'll bring Kathy will do that in the update. Yep, we'll do that. Do board members. Okay. The next thing, are there anybody from the public here that wishes to speak? I didn't hear anybody, so.
I'm not
Okay.
seeing anyone.
Okay, so there's no one from the public. The next thing, we have the agenda, the minutes from our April 11th meeting. And by the way, Kathy, Josh, I thank you very much. It's fantastic. You just go down, it's in the agenda, you click on it, you go to the website, and there they are. I think that's absolutely wonderful. So I had no excuse for not reading them. Let me put it that way. Yes.
I read them.
Yeah, okay. I know you read them.
I only have
Uh-oh,
one
here we-
change. I only have one
okay.
change.
Okay, Bruce.
I won't be a typical nudge. On the second page under State Librarian's Report, there's a paragraph where it says about in the middle, Bruce Post about the annual public library survey, and I just put in Bruce Post asked about the annual
Okay.
public
Thank
libraries.
you.
And that's all I had, really.
I have a question on page 4 under adjournment. The second paragraph there, the board discussed different ideas on how to respond to VSC's decision and identified that it has a limited purview in this matter. Specifically, that the Board of Libraries can advise the state librarian on the department's plans to mitigate its response to VSC's decisions. I'm not sure what mitigate means there.
I think maybe we should we could revise it to say to mitigate the impacts of VSC's decision. It's not our response that needs to be mitigated. It's any impacts to statewide services.
Oh, okay. Okay,
Yeah,
great.
that was the whole thing about them getting rid of the libraries and wanted us to respond, but that's sort of not in our purview.
Right. No, I understood that. I just didn't understand the use of the word mitigate. So Kathy, that makes sense. You're going to mitigate the effect of that the library, that the Department of Libraries will work to mitigate the effect of VSC's.
Yeah,
excuse me,
how about
VSC's decision.
mitigate the impacts of VSC's decision on statewide library services?
Oh, perfect. That's okay.
Okay.
That makes great sense. Thank you.
That's, I'm used to saying that phrase, so I think that it got lost in translation. So we'll
Okay,
update.
great. Great. Good.
Thanks for catching
Okay. Okay. Any other additions or corrections to the minutes? So now let's go for approval. All in favor of approving the minutes for the April 11th meeting, signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Nay. Any abstentions? Okay, so they're passed. And now we go right into Kathy's report.
Could I interrupt just for a second?
Sure, Bruce. Sure, Bruce.
I was coming back from Maxie's last Friday. She lives in Charlotte, driving north on Route 7 by the Pearson Library in Shelburne. And I looked at it and I said, I wonder how Kevin's doing. And now I know. So
now you know how Kevin's doing.
Welcome aboard, Kevin. I hope you enjoy the department and the challenges facing libraries statewide. I welcome you. Glad you're there.
Mhm.
Thank you, Bruce, and I'm very glad to be here. And I'm glad you got to see the Pearson. I'm driving by next week and look forward to dropping in and seeing everybody. So thanks.
Okay, Tom, should I move into the
Yes,
just briefly sharing the topics? Okay.
Yes.
Hi, everybody. I hope that you had a chance to read the report that I provided you, the written report dated July 11th, 2023. Bruce, you've stolen my thunder because we really are excited to bring Kevin Unrath to the team. And I love being able to say to you that we are now fully staffed. We've had some lean times, but it's great to have. And yes, Jeanette, I will knock on wood. And also the cat is yelling in the background. We are all very glad to have a full complement of 18 permanent staff members in our team right now. Last report, we talked about how the annual public library survey was underway. That has been completed. Sometimes we wonder about the impacts of COVID on the work of the department. We had seen a drop in the completion rate in 2020. The report that was the numbers that were collected last year in fiscal year 2022, which are the 2021 numbers, we had seen a drop in the completion rate. Through some extra outreach, we are back up to our regular completion rate of about 83%. That's in line with the pre-COVID response rate. So we're really happy to have seen a 5% increase in the number of libraries, public libraries responding to the public library survey. That's an annual survey that all of the state library administrative agencies participate in. We report to the Institute of Museum and Library Services annually. I do want to note that our participation rate and our completion of this annual survey are not tied to our funding through IMLS. It's a separate activity. And so we do participate in this, and we have this year aligned our survey questions with the standard questions. We do give some additional information and some survey guides because the survey questions are a little bit opaque at times. So we decided to align with the national question set so that we could really compare well across from our data across other states and have apples be more similar to apples when we're looking at those data points rather than having apples and oranges. I want to credit Josh Muse, who has done the lion's share of the work on that survey. thank you, Josh. You have been really flexible in responding to my suggestions for changes to the survey, and you are always so great to work with. And I know that the extra support you've provided to public libraries, the extra outreach you've done to those who haven't responded is how we got the return rate that we have. And so I just want to thank you and credit you with the great work that goes on in the department around the survey, the PLS. Just a quick update on the Public Library Capital Projects grants. Since the board met last, the department has officially received word that the U.S. Department of Treasury has granted the state of Vermont $16.4 million in capital project funds toward capital improvements in Vermont's public libraries. Those $16.4 million are the ones that are targeted toward response to COVID. These are ARPA dollars, state ARPA dollars that we applied for, and now we have actually received the go-ahead with this. We've received our proposal has been approved to use those funds to improve public libraries, capital buildings, so that people in the community can continue to access the internet for the purposes of telehealth, education, and work. Those are the real focuses of those funds.
And I would say on that, just that one, so Deb and Linda, since your children's room in the Weston Library is totally flooded out, right?
No.
Then, I thought you said the basement. Okay.
We thought it was, but we have better intel now, and it's survived. But thank you, Bruce. I mean, thank you, Tom.
Okay, because I was just going to say that would be because I don't think you have a restroom there. Obviously, you don't have a handicap restroom there. And I was just going to say, under renovations, that would be something that the ARPA funds are for, right? Specifically for handicap accessibility and everything, right, Kathy?
Yeah, so the ARPA funds from Treasury are really to ensure internet access for all community members for the purposes of telework, teleeducation, and telehealth. So that's really how they'll be framed, and our application will be asking questions to get at the suitability of specific projects for those grant funds, or for the other set of grant funds, which are $10 million that we were awarded back in December through the congressionally directed spending. And that's being administered by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. That second grant funding, so there are two pots, the 16.4 ARPA Treasury money and the 10 million HUD money. The 10 million is really a little bit broader. It could go for any types of improvements at the library that are going to be helping small and rural libraries to maintain library service and kind of shore up their building, a lot of deferred maintenance type things. But both of those funds could be used for ADA upgrades. We want every Vermonter to be able to get into the library. The department plans to develop one comprehensive grant application and to launch that in the fall. And public libraries will be able to submit their needs and submit their proposals and submit their application. And then we will use two rubrics to determine which libraries will receive these competitive grant funds. We did the needs assessment in the spring, which is helping us to develop the grant application and the rubric. So we are in progress with that. And before we do any questions on this topic, I just want to share that as part of the proposal, we included 2 full-time limited service positions to support both of those federally funded capital grants projects. And we are recruiting for one of those positions right now, and we're about to open the recruitment for the second position. So we should be able to bring in a couple of people to help to administer those programs. So this is additive work for the department, but we have a plan to take on that additional work.
Very good. And we have one hand raised.
That's me.
Okay, didn't know who. Okay.
Yeah.
Bruce?
Kathy,
Okay, go ahead, Maxie. I'll wait.
I am now walking with a cane, and I'm increasingly aware how important it is to have handicap accessibility. Because even though people say we're handicapped accessible, it's still extremely difficult to walk on an incline with a cane. So I really want to stress that when you have a new consultant, that this gets considered as they work on proposals or implementation.
Thank you, Maxie. Just to speak to that for a second, the funding for the projects will be looking at architectural plans and things of that nature, but for ADA accessibility, there are state standards and federal standards that would be, though we would have a requirement that the projects are meeting a minimum standard that is established outside of the department. But that is definitely something that is important to us, and having been in a wheelchair for a period of time and having used crutches countless times, I can assure you that I'm very aware, like you are now, that not every space is actually accessible easily for people who have limited mobility for any reason.
Yeah, thank you, Kath.
Yeah, of course.
This is Bruce. In a sort of related thing, and as an aside, back in 2011, I think a few libraries got hammered. I think Heartland, or one of its libraries, got hammered. Waterbury got hammered and built a brand new thing. So people are aware of this stuff going out. You may also get questions from local libraries that may be damaged by this flooding and rain. And I know Tom McMurdo was around back then. I don't know how much the department did in terms of providing direct assistance. A lot of that may come through FEMA and municipal funds, but that was an issue that we did discuss at the time. And I know it's too early to know exactly what's happening.
Yeah,
Thanks.
thank you, Bruce. We've been, in general, I've been digging through some of the department's files since I joined the department, and definitely those team members like Tom who have been here this whole time are really helpful in explaining what took place in the past. My understanding is that the department didn't provide direct funding, that FEMA was the mechanism, the funding source, and that there was a mechanism for that was happening more at the local level, but that the department did certainly provide information about how to apply for that and how to kind of bolster one's application and things of that nature. Just so you're aware, last night, with the help of Tom and Jeanette and Kevin Unrath, who is our operations consultant, I did put out a message to the library community. There is a survey that is out there right now when public libraries, academic libraries, and school libraries, when the staff are safe. The first thing, of course, is personal safety. When they are safe and it's safe to do so, we are asking that they report storm damage so that we can find out what the need is. Not that we're necessarily the ones to meet that need, but that we would have an understanding of what the impacts were to libraries in our state. So we're already beginning that type of survey. We have an online survey tool which people can use. They can also call, and they can also send an email. And we're here to support them in kind of finding out what resources are going to be available. So far, we just launched this afternoon, and Jeanette is pinging me to say right now we've had 30 reports already, and only one of them has damage currently. And Jeanette, please feel free to unmute and remind me which has damage currently. Is it Russell?
Yeah, it's Russell Memorial in Moncton, and I suspect that we're probably going to get further reports from folks once they're able to assess. So I think we'll probably see those after a couple of days or by tonight, probably, for the libraries that have had damage.
Thanks, John.
Can I just
Yeah,
add something right there about library damage? As I just reported, the Weston Library did not have water in its lower level as we originally thought. However, there was a huge amount of water flowing around the building, and we do not know yet, and we won't know for a while, whether there was any structural damage. So there's unknown potential damage that we don't know about. And so it's not as easy as just saying like, we're perfect.
And please feel what our messaging today is letting people know that if something comes up, if you find something new, you can report again. We'll update your report because you're absolutely correct. People might think that they're fine on day one and then something happens upstream of them and suddenly they're having trouble on day two, or day three, or whenever it may emerge. So that's something that people can do is to re-report.
The one thing that did happen to our library, which is not in whatever, the bridge over the river to get to our library, which is just on the other side of the river, was washed out. So people can't get to the library by car unless they go around a Gigundo way, up and down other roads and all that kind of stuff. So our library is very isolated at the moment, which is a different kind of damage.
Well, I want to,
Kathy,
first of all, I'm sorry, go ahead. I don't want to interrupt, Linda.
Oh, sorry, Bruce. I just wanted to say, Kathy, I saw that note that you sent out. Maybe we all did, but I thought it was wonderful, supportive, and let libraries know that the state library is behind them if they need help. So thank you for that. It was great.
And I want to second what Linda said. I think this is being very proactive when this is an ongoing event. And so I really appreciate it. And again, it's another example, like, you reported last time on the survey, how we really don't have control of public libraries in this state at the department level. However, the department is a central clearinghouse of information, and in many ways is a place where people can go to give voice to their problems. And you, as state librarian and staff, can raise this with the administration and the legislature. So I'm really thankful and complimentary about your being out front so fast, so soon. And I'm sure you're going to get stuff coming in. I'd say dribbling in, but that'd be a horrible pun. So.
Well, I want to thank the team here in the department. Behind any message you see, there are folks who I've shared some language with and have crafted it with me. And this particular message, Tom, Jeanette, and Lily helped with, and Jeanette and Kevin worked on what questions we needed to ask in the survey. And I was actually inspired to put out a message because Kevin had suggested he start calling some libraries that had flooded in the past. So our team is really proactive and thinking about what libraries need, and they make me look good. So thank you to the department staff who have been working steadily behind the scenes. Part of what I wanted to make sure people knew is that even though our state offices are closed, that we are here, we are teleworking, and it can't be hard for people to do that when, there might be an evacuation coming. So I just want to thank all of the department staff who have been logging on and getting work done despite this really significant rain event, that we are putting the needs of the community top of mind. And thank you to all of the team for doing that. I know it's not easy.
Okay, very good. Somebody's hand was raised before. Has it been answered?
I think
Deb's. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, Deb's hand is up.
I think she put it down now.
Okay,
I still had a couple more things to share in my report, one of which I think you're all waiting to hear about. So just a quick note, we'll talk a little bit more about the upcoming meeting of the working group on the status of libraries in Vermont on the topic of safety later in the agenda. I just want to quickly let you know that there have been 2 meetings since you met last. On April 21st, the working group met on the topic of intellectual freedom. On May 26th, it met on the topic of library structures and organizations. Board of Libraries Chair Tom Frank made another appearance, this time in his board chair role. Last time he had spoken about able library services. This time he talked about the role of the Board of Libraries in our governance and our organization of library structures in the state. So many thanks to Tom for being there for that. If anyone's interested in going back and looking at the minutes or the video, those are all online for you. Summer reading is a big push going on across the state. Our topic this year is All Together Now, which is really appropriate, and even more so as we're going to need to launch into recovery efforts in the community. But it focuses on themes of kindness, friendship, and unity, which I think Vermonters have in spades, and we're really excited to support libraries with that theme. We do support public libraries in two ways. One of them is through participation in a regional summer reading program. 76% of our public libraries participate in that. And that's to help people to have access to professional quality publicity and materials, which is really appreciated by especially the smaller libraries. And we also leverage funds from the Elva S. Smith Fund to provide grants of $300 to every public library in the state that applies. And this year, we have a full list of the libraries that received the funding, and I forgot to include the exact number, but I think it was around 150. She said with a question mark. I can verify that number at a later point. 150. Jonathan Clark, our youth services consultant, has confirmed that my memory is accurate. Good job, Jonathan. Good job, Lucy. Good job, Jeanette, getting the word out there and issuing all those grants. So that's 150 out of 185-ish libraries. So that is really great. I want to share that a couple of us marched in the Mad River Libraries and Beyond contingent recently. Adrienne Katz, board member, vice chair, was there doing a wonderful job with her long arms, holding up the sign, the banner. Our contingent won an award for having the most vital message, I believe it was. And along with Adrienne, I was there. And I have to say, I'm a little embarrassing. So if you ever see any videos of me in a parade, I'm sorry, state of Vermont. I get into it. There's yelling, there's shouting, there's running around and slapping small children's hands. Tom McMurdo was dressed, I can't even explain to you. It was like schoolboy patriot. It was amazing. Really awesome tie. And he was handing out so many bookmarks that we actually met our goal of distributing them all. So great job. And Joy Warland was using her musical skills to actually bring some rhythm to our book truck drill team. So Joy is a professional musician in addition to being the library consultant for continuing education. And sadly, her skills were needed at some points because we had a chant going on about stopping the book bans. So really a big supportive crowd and really a fun event. And
how wonderful. How absolutely wonderful.
It was really
great.
fun. Well, I can share some photos with you. I think we did some social media posts with them too. And the great thing was our entire, every official elected to the national stage was there. So Bernie Sanders came to take photos with us, and Senator Welch, and also Representative Bayland, and they were really supportive of public libraries, and it was very exciting to meet them in person. And we were really thrilled to have their support for our message. That was a pretty big update, but the biggest update that I have to you just happened, and it didn't make it into the written report. We have heard from Tracy DeLude at the governor's office that 3 new members will be appointed to our board. I don't want to steal Governor Scott's thunder, but my understanding is that their appointment date will be tomorrow, potentially. Now that was said before all of this happened in Montpelier, so it may get delayed slightly, but I do want to take this moment to thank our 3 departing board members, Bruce Post, Maxie Ewens, and Deb Granquist. You have served capably, you have served generously, you have served way longer than you agreed to serve. You have given so much time and energy to your work and so much support to me, to interim state librarian Tom McMurdo, to prior state librarians Broughton, and possibly even earlier than that when I start thinking back through time. You've been here for quite some time,
Bruce,
helping
11
out,
years, I think,
giving
right?
guidance.
Well, I think Deb and I actually are on 12 years.
Oh, 12 years. Okay.
Because we were
Yeah.
first appointed to fill an unexpired seat, and that gave us 3 years. And then we did the 2 4-year terms, that gives us
Yep.
11. And then we've been on a year after
You've been on here now.
our expiration date.
You've served your sentence very well, and now.
And I almost didn't accept the appointment. I am so thankful I did. I learned so much about libraries in the state, supporters of libraries. We had some vexing issues, and we navigated them as a board with free exchange of ideas and things like that. And I think I've gone through, so we had Marty Reed, then we had Scott Murphy, then we had Jason, and now we have Kathy. So experience, and then Tom as interim. We experienced several librarians state librarians in our tenure, and we may have set a record, Deb, for the modern era of being on the Board of Libraries. And I thank all of the staff I've worked with too. You've been great.
Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you so much, all of you. And I won't share the names of the people who have been appointed, but I do want to share that they do represent a wide geography in the state. And one of them, I believe, is a parent, which was one of our objectives as well. So we had a lot of applicants, which was really wonderful. And we reviewed the applications and made recommendations to the governor, and then the governor and his team review the recommendations, and then they do some additional vetting, and that's how the decision is made. So I also want to thank Chair Tom Frank for his role in connecting with the various applicants and reviewing the applications closely with me. So thank you, Tom, for that. I also want to share that just really quickly, the department has been doing great outreach, and I neglected to stick in an update about some of the outreach by our inclusive services and able library staff, and we'll put that into the next report. But Karen Gravlin has been out there in the community, getting more folks involved in services for the able library, services of the able library. So when in the next report, I promise to give an update on all the outreach that's gone on recently, just with some events and who it's been for, because I think that getting into the community is absolutely essential. And we really need to get the message out about the services we provide, especially our direct services. And that is it for me for that talk.
Very good. Let's see.
So if you have any further questions, let me know.
Let me see, what time are we here?
I have a comment. I have a comment.
Go ahead, Maxie.
Okay. I want to thank Kathy for an excellent report. It was comprehensive, it was really substantive, and my not so secret informant on the staff tells me that, yes, they welcome Kevin. They're very happy that he has come on board, and she feels that this staff is a unit under your leadership, and she really likes working with all of you. So, and you know who it is, Kathy.
Well, I'm really glad to hear that. I do want to share too that the staff of the board of the staff of the department are doing a staff appreciation event later this month. I'm very hopeful that the floodwaters go down and that Wrightsville Reservoir is in good shape to welcome us. And I anticipate that will be the case. And we will be having a full staff appreciation event on the 25th. So hopefully they don't dunk me. I don't know. There'll be swimming and kayaking and some barbecuing of vegetarian and non-vegetarian items. And I want to just say that the supervisors in our team, the 2 assistant state librarians and the 2 staff who supervise folks are really doing great work in getting everybody engaged. And I feel really fortunate to be working with such an active, proactive team of people who all have the same focus of helping Vermont's libraries. So all credit to the full team for this. And we're lucky in a way. It's nice when you have a small team because we can all connect really easily and closely. And I think that helps us.
Kathy, did you know that the not so secret informant is playing in a band?
I don't know if I knew.
Get her to perform. She's good.
Very exciting. Yeah, she's everywhere. That not so secret.
I can say it's a friend of my grandson's. So that's how I get my inside information.
Well, we don't want to put anybody on the spot, but there is something that we may be doing as a team later this year, which is Tom McMurdo's personal brainchild of participating as the Department of Libraries band in some sort of worst song in the universe
Worst song ever.
Worst song. Yeah. Tom, do you want to tell him what your song is? It's up to Tom to pick the song because this is his group bonding activity.
Yeah, we're going to put this is being recorded, by the way. I just want to point that out. So yes, we are, the idea is to put together a group of musicians who play instruments at the department and perform Hot Child in the City at Worst Song Ever.
And where does that event take place? We could let you know because you might be our groupies. I don't know.
So this year it's been at the Socialist Meeting Hall. This year it's at the Canadian Club, which will be exciting.
Yeah, the team that plays bad music together stays together. We hope.
Where's the Canadian Club?
Is it in Barrie?
Yeah, it's in Barrie. So it's kind of the back way from East Montpelier to Barrie on that road. Jeanette knows Barrie very well.
Scary Barrie?
No.
No.
I listened to that on The Brave Little State. I heard that one about Scary Barrie, and that's no.
Just one more comment, just for the record. The Pavilion building has water in it. Our offices have a very small trickle of water in them in the basement, and we have. I think most of you have visited our space in Barrie. It's quite. It's very nice office space, and certainly an upgrade from what we had in Montpelier.
And all your collection and everything are on the second floor, right? So you don't.
Yeah, and there's no in our office space. We've gotten an update from VHS, the VHS director and staff who have been on site today. They did not see any water damage in our building at 60 Washington Street, where we rent space from the Vermont Historical Society. So we're really fortunate. Yeah, and I have to say, I kind of love working in Barrie because there's so many things to do and so many good places to have lunch, and it's a nice place to walk around. So I'm glad that we're there, and I know that there's some recovery effort needed there. So you know, we're really rooting for Barrie right now.
Now we heard from Bruce and we heard from Maxie. Deb, you're the other one that's leaving us, but you'll be glad to know where one of the new people is from the southern part of the state. I really was saying we need diversity in area, so we're getting somebody from the southern part of the state.
Well, since this is my swan song and my unknowns, I didn't know it was going to be my swan song, but this is
we just found out. It's been a surprise.
I will, and Bruce and Tom, since you sort of gave me the opportunity, I will also say thank you to everybody who's been involved with this great department, the board, and as Bruce said, it's not just getting to know the Department of Libraries, which I didn't know at all, and getting to understand better about libraries. I mean, I knew a lot about a little tiny library in Weston, but I really didn't know much about libraries throughout the state. So that's been really wonderful. It's also been really wonderful working with such a great group of people who are dedicated to libraries, the future of libraries. And I always love serving on boards because it's such an enriching experience. Not only do you learn a lot about something that you maybe didn't know a lot about, but you meet such wonderfully dedicated, interesting people. And that's been part of the joy too. And I also would say I have under 4 state librarians, all who had their own kind of philosophy and mark. It has been really incredibly wonderful to watch particularly over the last couple of years. I really feel like the organization has really come together, and it's really all operating on the same page with the same vision, the same mission, and that's really very exciting. So I'm very optimistic for the future of the department, but I'm always optimistic for the future of libraries. So thank you.
Thank you, Deb.
And we definitely thank you, Deb, for your service. And now you can work on that Weston library. There, and then did you get your driveway filled in yet, so you can get out?
No, I can walk out, but I can't drive out.
She can't drive out. She has like a 3-foot trench across her driveway. Yeah.
Tom, I've just
Yes.
heard that the governor has a press conference scheduled at 11. So I just wanted to make you aware of that. And I wonder,
Okay.
I should have mentioned this in the changes to the agenda, but I wonder if it would be possible to switch the VPLF update and vote to
Yeah,
ahead of the
why don't we
safety
do that,
topic?
and then we can switch the other one if everybody wants to listen to the governor. Yes. Next one is we have the Vermont Public Library Fund. that we're
Foundation.
Foundation, and we have a representative, Adrian now, and we just wanted to make sure Kathy can bring us up to date what the fund is doing and what we need as a representative from the board.
That's correct. So I'll give a brief update. So I'm the president of the Vermont Public Library Foundation. That's in the bylaws of that foundation, which is separate and distinct from both the Board of Libraries and the Department of Libraries, except that it has one representative from your membership on the board, and it has 2 members of the Department of Libraries staff on the board. So let me explain a little bit more. The Vermont Public Library Foundation, or VPLF, is a supporting organization with the sole function of providing direct grant funding to public libraries in the state of Vermont. The VPLF is led by a 5-member board of directors, including the state librarian, the assistant state librarian for advancement, that's Jeanette Schaefer, the president of the public library section of VLA or their designee. Currently, that member of the VPLF board is Susan O'Connell, the director of Craftsbury Public Library. The president of the Friends and Trustees section of VLA or their designee. Currently, that position is the person in that position is Howard Burrows, who is from the Brattleboro Public Library Board. And there is also one representative from the Vermont Board of Libraries, and that representative must be voted on annually. Last year, we conducted a vote at our July meeting, and you all elected Adrian Katz, who has been serving as the Board of Libraries representative to the VPLF board since July. I really want to thank Adrian for all of the time and her contributions to the board of the VPLF, particularly as the time commitment to the VPLF board has been significantly more than I anticipated it to be when I came to you with a request from this body last July. To explain that, I will share that since July of last year, the VPLF board has met 7 times, usually for about 2 hours, and on one occasion for roughly 4 hours. The meetings have typically been conducted virtually, but one of the meetings, the very long one, was conducted in person in St. Johnsbury. We anticipate that occasional meetings will be in person in the future, and that the majority of the meetings will be virtual. I also want to share that Jeanette Schaefer and I have put in many hours behind the scenes to oversee the administration of this nonprofit organization. It's appropriate to do that in our role as Department of Libraries staffs, but it doesn't exactly align with our strategic priorities and all of the work that we're doing. So it is hard to make enough time to consistently be running a nonprofit organization. Doing that work appropriately within the legal frameworks for nonprofits and really we're administering the Department of Libraries, and then we're also administering this nonprofit. So it does take time away from what we could be doing for the departmental responsibilities if we were not doing the VPLF work. I want to acknowledge the efforts of one board member in particular, and that's Susan O'Connell. As I mentioned, she's last year she was the president of the public library section of VLA, the Vermont Library Association, and she is currently the director of the Craftsbury Public Library. Susan stepped up significantly in the past year by serving as the vice president of the VPLF board and by leading the effort to develop the Winnie Bell Learned grant materials, the applications, the website, things of that, what we were going to post an email about. That thing, because in fiscal year 2023, the board of VPLF learned that in the past, it had not met its granting obligations. As a supporting organization, it was required to grant out 85%. It is required to grant out 85% of its income to the supported organizations. When I went about reconstituting the board and filing all of the documentation, that triggered some engagement with the Internal Revenue Service. The VPLF to grant out at least $53,000 in fiscal year 2023. Through the efforts of the current board, we have done that, which is great. We granted out $59,500 to public libraries through the Winnie Bell Learned Fund to support programs and services for youth. We did that in grant award amounts of $500 per library. These were non-competitive grants. Pretty much everybody who applied got one. Sometimes the board members had to talk with people and get them to tweak their proposal a little bit to conform with what we were hoping that their programs or services would do. Just as a point of information, the VPLF had just over 20,000 in revenue and 4,000 in operating expenses last year. So that's really primarily just a disbursement from the Winnie Bell Learned Foundation. So one thing to be aware of is at the May meeting of the VPLF board, I shared a proposal to fund mini grants to public libraries that would leverage more than 180,000 in funds remaining from the original Freeman Foundation grant to the VPLF to support communities that rank high on the Vermont Community Index in developing plans for capital projects. So these are typically small rural libraries. The use of those funds in that way is in keeping with the donor's original intent as the donor had conveyed it in a letter to the department back at the inception of the VPLF. That proposal is currently under consideration by the VPL board. It would be helpful for me, Jeanette, and your future representative to the board after you do your vote to hear your thoughts on the idea of providing public libraries with grant funding to support their development of capital project plans today. So as I shared at the very beginning of this long spiel, the bylaws of the VPLF indicate that your Board of Library representative must be voted on annually. And I put this agenda on the item, I put this item on the agenda today so that you all could nominate and vote on a representative to the VPLF board from among your members, not your current members, because 3 of you are about to not be members anymore, but among those members who will be continuing on with the board of libraries. And I'm happy to answer your questions about the work of the VPLF, and I'm hopeful that you can vote on your representative today.
Okay. And so just that was a lot more time than was originally planned. So anyway, Adrian's the current one. And actually, since James isn't here and we can't really ask him, and it's hard for him to get to any meetings, that leaves 3. Me, Adrian, or Linda. So anybody, what's your pleasure?
So may I make a comment?
Yeah, absolutely.
All things considered, the board has done a lot of fantastic work so far. And what Kathy was sharing about the Department of Library staff, but on a much smaller scale, that it is hard to get in the work. I am full-time at the St. Johnsbury Athenaeum, and that is also difficult. That it's been terrific to get VPLF up and going. I would ideally like to step down at one point, I would like to step down. I've really enjoyed it. It's not too much work, but it's not something I'm able to give my full attention to.
Okay, no, we appreciate it. It's just, yeah, these things. I remember now that I'm retired, I can do these things. But when I was at Social Security, I know it's I gotta take 2. Yeah, well, yeah.
It's hard
very,
to step away because I've really enjoyed
very, very difficult,
working with
especially when you're
Kathy,
a librarian, they
Jeanette.
need you.
Yes. And more
So,
in-person
Don't
visits.
want to do it anymore?
pardon?
Adrian, you don't want to be on that board anymore? Or you?
It's not want, it's
No,
more of a difficulty, especially if going forward, if there's going to be more in-person meetings, that's taking away for me from serving my own library, the commute, the time. I've really enjoyed the work, and but there's a future that really needs to be carefully considered, and that needs the full attention. In addition to the work that is granting funds and making that possible.
Yeah.
Susan O'Connell has done tremendous amount of work. And it's a lot to ask of a librarian.
Yeah, it's
to work,
difficult,
to volunteer.
Yeah.
It's a complication. It's very similar to the Department of Libraries, but on a smaller scale.
So Kathy, do you have some sense of what the time commitment is going to be going forward, or will it be the same as you said that it had increased beyond what you anticipated? Do you anticipate that higher level of commitment to continue?
I'm hopeful that it won't be quite as intense because the IRS investigation or examination rather is completed. There are some decisions that need to be made about the future of the organization, though, given that it's quite a lot. Typically, and from what I understand after getting some legal guidance and learning more about nonprofits, this amount of money isn't that large to warrant this much effort. So there may be some there may be some tough conversations that need to take place about how do we continue this? How do we make sure that Vermont libraries have continued access to the donors' funds? You know, what happens next? So I don't anticipate that it's going to be maybe as intense for the full year, but it will take some real, I just wanted to be realistic about it when talking with you all, that it wasn't just 1 or 2 meetings. In the past, I've done a lot. I think you know about me that I want to do things correctly, even if it sometimes is hard. And so I got legal counsel for the VPLF that's separate from the department. That was the right thing to do, according to my department counsel. And we're working through things as a board and learning about that. There were a lot of steps that had to happen this year in terms of reconstituting the board and learning about how to have it run. And then this big amount of granting that had to happen. Instead of granting out maybe $15,000, we had to grant out close to 60. So I mean, that was challenging.
So, thank you, Kathy. That's really helpful. Tom, this is a little bit awkward, but given the fact that it's you or me or James, who isn't even here, I really can't take that on. We have this huge building project at the Weston Library, of which I'm a leader, raising, a couple $1 million and designing a building and doing public relations and whatever. I'm not going to be able to do it. I can't take on that work. So Tom, it's either you or we draft James.
Or me, and I don't want to draft James. I told Kathy if can't do anywhere else, I would do it because I do have the time. Let's put it that way.
Thank you. That would be great. I nominate Tom Frank as the Board of Libraries representative to the VPLF, VLFP, the VFPL.
VPFF, Vermont
I knew it
Public
started with
Library
V.
Foundation. Yeah, VPLF.
VPLF.
It's a mouthful.
Yeah.
Second.
Is there a second? Okay.
I second, Bruce.
Okay, Bruce second it. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I just want to say, for those of us who've been on the board a long time, the VPLF was a great mystery. and people kept talking about trying to sort it out. And so I want to really commend Kathy in, doing it. I mean, we talked when I was chair, and I think this is just a tremendous job. It's not, but I can't say it's thankless because you're getting thanked right now, but really, I mean, it was like me trying to read Sanskrit on some cave in India. We couldn't figure it out, and I appreciate the fact that you did not only figured it out but straightened it out.
Yes.
And so we can vote if you want.
Yeah. And with Kathy, I always say we have good news and bad news. Is the good news Kathy crosses her T's and dots her I's. The bad news is Kathy crosses her T's and dots her I's. So that's it. So
Wait,
any
hold
other
on.
comments?
There are two hands raised.
Yeah,
Just
comments. Yeah.
point of
Thank
clarification.
Adrian, thank you for doing this.
Yes.
Oh, God.
You're
Yeah.
welcome.
Much time.
Thank you, Adrian.
My pleasure. And I was glad to help get it going, and all the great funds that went to those libraries to support so many different projects. It's very exciting. So that was great.
Point of clarification. Did I misunderstand? Do you want everybody to vote or just the current
All
member?
bo- all board
Everybody
members.
should vote.
Everybody's current.
You're all
Everybody's
current today.
Yeah.
Okay.
The six of us were current because the others, they're not current the day that the appointments take effect, and they're not going to take effect at least until tomorrow. And with all the flooding, they might be a little more delayed, but yeah, current members, yes, there's six of us.
Okay.
So any other comments? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, I was outvoted. I won't say no. Abstain. I'll abstain. Okay. Thank you. And then Kathy, I'll have to fill in what the next meeting is. Do we want to
wait.
stop for the governor's?
Can I ask a question for the minutes? Was that
Yeah.
a unanimous vote, or Tom, did you abstain?
I'll say because it's me, I'll say that I abstained.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, do we want to adjourn so people can hear the governor's? Because the next thing is public safety. how we wanted to deal with that, and then we adjourn, or we could just continue with public safety.
I would say continue with public safety. I can listen to the governor later on.
Okay, good enough. Okay, it'll be on the news.
Unless Kathy needs to hear something.
Unless Kathy,
No,
you need to, and then
It's
you
okay, I
can.
can listen to it afterward. I haven't gotten any alerts either.
Okay.
So it's okay. And, okay, so just looking at, just timing wise, let's see. I think we're actually, Tom, I think we're doing pretty well on time because right now
We're
it's
doing very well on
11:07.
time. Yes.
Yeah,
doing
so I'm
very
sorry,
well on time.
I was a little bit more verbose maybe than you expected, but I think we're okay time wise.
We're fine.
So, Tom, do you want me to just share a brief couple of paragraphs to tee up the conversation?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes, please.
So the working group on the status of libraries in Vermont will convene on Friday, July 28th on the topic of safety in libraries. This is an additive topic. The committees, the House and Senate committees on education asked us to add this to our charge because they had a concern brought to them and they have a miscellaneous bill that's possibly going to be signed. It hasn't been signed yet to my knowledge, that adds this particular word, safety, to our charge, and also could potentially move the deadline for the report to December 20th instead of the beginning of November. I asked to move it much further out to give us more time to write, but they wanted to have the report at the beginning of the next legislative session. So I'll take whatever extension they can give us, but we did need to add a working group meeting to accommodate the addition of safety. We also, Tom, Chair Frank and I heard from board member James Saunders, who had also brought a topic related to public safety and staff safety and presenter safety in light of a recent event at the Cobley Library in Lyndonville. To share some information about that event at the Cobley Library on June 10th, poet Toussaint St. Negritude led a library program that day at which a small group of community members gathered to share poems by their favorite LGBTQIA+ poets. The event drew some protesters whose behavior led the presenter, library staff, and I assume attendees to feel unsafe. Toussaint St. Negritude is a Black and gay community member who resides in the Northeast Kingdom in Newark, Vermont, I believe. He works for Vermont Humanities, but was not representing Vermont Humanities when he was leading the poetry group at the library. There are 2 articles about this particular incident, which you can find on Vermont Digger and in the Caledonia Record, if you haven't seen those already. But it's just sort of, and I put those 2 in the chat link. But they're something that's being talked about a lot right now by library staff. And it does highlight the fact that in public libraries, there can be events of all different types that can be controversial and that could lead to protests at a public library. And that's a public safety concern. We also know that there are at times behaviors that are threatening toward library staff just in the course of our regular work, and that there are safety concerns for the public when using some public libraries at some times. And so I just, Tom was very agreeable to adding this topic to the agenda, and especially as we have the working group meeting on this topic coming up, and as you serve in an advisory role to me and to the working group, I thought it would be a good idea to get your thoughts on safety in libraries. And that could be all types of libraries and all types of programs. This incident is like an entry point to the conversation, but certainly not the only incident in libraries. But it is a very concerning one when our community members in the LGBTQ community and in the African American community don't feel safe in in the library, in a library in Vermont. It's
Now,
very
this would be
concerning.
a governance issue, isn't it, for libraries dealing with policies, procedures?
That's a good point. I think some libraries in our state have programming policies, just as we have collection development policies. Libraries have begun developing programming policies to support the staff in planning events for the public. It could also be a staffing issue when you think about security staffing, or how do you plan for.
Actually, what I was getting at is, welcome aboard, Kevin.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Well, he's operations, not just
Oh,
governance.
operations, not government.
Yeah.
Oh, who's
I
government?
do want to share as well that our operations consultant did connect with the Cobley Library Director
Okay.
and check if they needed any support or just to talk it through
Okay,
in the
good.
immediate aftermath of this incident. And that's the type of thing that the department might do in general if we hear that there are folks who are having issues that come up at their library.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I have a comment.
Please, Maxine.
Yeah. So in my 13 years at the Fletcher Free Library, we encountered many safety issues. You know, at one time, I was called at 2 o'clock in the morning to the library because somebody was hiding in the stacks. So I would go with a police escort in my then German Shepherd through the library. And that person then eventually was brought to social services. We also encountered very threatening behavior at times at the circulation desk, singling out certain people. So we actually had a code, which most people had forgotten about. But so I think security in a public library, aside from current situations, is really important. We connected with police at times. So it's definitely a concern, at least for this very urban library in Burlington.
I got a comment. This is Bruce.
Yeah, please, Bruce.
Well, yeah, you got to do what you got to do if they're putting it in legislation that may be signed. But I do remember, and I agree with Maxie, it's a broad safety issue, not necessarily just focused on discrete groups. But again, I remember, Kathy, I think at the last meeting you said, boy, I would have structured this work group study a lot differently if I were doing it, because one of the tendencies we get in Vermont is there's all sorts of good ideas there, and we laden these reports with all these good ideas, don't provide the resources or the time to get it done. So you got a challenge, and if you could unravel VPLF, I'm sure you'll be able to meet the challenge on the working group thing. But welcome to Vermont. Again, you'll see this time after time after time. Again, a lot of demands on doing things, but very little support behind the scenes and getting it done by the legislature, which is making the demands. So I wish you luck.
I was going to say, they forwarded me, it wasn't threatening, but they forwarded me to the Kathy and Jeanette message. They had a meeting at the library in Plainfield, and it was dealing a presentation on the Dorothy Canfield Fisher Award. And we dealt with that 4 years ago by essentially not doing it, and the person had talked about it and got 2 emails. Oh, it's horrible that the Board of Libraries didn't stand up to it and all of that. And I just had that, I gave the history of it, and then basically it wasn't our jurisdiction, so we didn't do it. And now it's the Golden Dome Award, and it's a separate organization, la la la. And I think that, but just even those sorts of things can be quite controversial, and need sort of assistance, or at least study the fact that it can happen at any library, and not just urban, but the small rural ones, people are upset. So it's a great idea, and how's this? And by the way, how's the study group? We had somebody that's going to write it up, correct? Kathy, how was that going?
So with the working group that didn't really have enough resources to do both a survey that it wanted to do, and that's actually about to launch on staffing and salaries, and also pay for a survey writer, a consultant to write not the survey, a consultant to write the report. So as there are a number of working group members, what the working group decided to do was to break up the topics and to have a primary writer for each of the topics. So I've begun receiving topic summaries from the various working group members on their selected topics. And they will also summarize the recommendations that were made during the various meetings. So pretty much each meeting, when I got here, Tom McMurdo had already set up a structure that each meeting would be on one topic. So that makes it a little bit easier for the most part to kind of focus on that topic. So and staff who did presentations have done a great job in writing up reports on their presentations. And then those will be coupled, and those are rich with data. So again, thanks to Josh Muse for his help supporting everybody on that. But there are these kind of data we have in the department, reports written by department staff, and then there are reports that I'm receiving now from the working group members. Those will be kind of combined, and we'll have a kind of a maybe 10-page report on each of the many topics. So this is going to be a behemoth, and I think we'll be doing a summary, an executive summary, so that people can kind of quickly get to the meat of it, and then they can go through and read everything else.
I have one maybe a little strange comment. Safety and political pressure, can they kind of blend at times? So where does one end and where does the other one begin? And that's definitely an issue for us at the library. And I won't go into details.
Well, you have the issues of, if I can jump in here, you have lots of free speech issues here as well. I mean, we're seeing this across the country in all kinds of ways. I think I think that this is a really important topic, and I'm sorry for your sake, Kathy, that it was added to your working group late. But it's such an important topic across the country, and has been for a decade at least, safety in public libraries. And we've just been lucky in Vermont, or maybe it's been sort of incidents have been few and far between enough that we haven't really noticed it in Vermont, but it's going to be here because it's everywhere. And I wonder if, given the importance of public libraries to the sustaining and nurturing of democracy, and those places and public libraries as places open to everyone, if maybe the Board of Libraries, I don't know, makes a statement about the importance of supporting, the openness of libraries and the safety of libraries. I don't know. That might be a possibility for your working group to consider, that there be a statement of support made by the governor, made by the Board of Libraries, made by any other institution in the state that would that could speak out on this importance. I don't know what you want from us. I mean, clearly it's important, and you have to look at it. So,
can I jump in for a sec? Just to say, the working group would welcome statements from the Board of Libraries on any of the topics. We did have an intellectual freedom day where one of our meetings was completely focused on intellectual freedom, and that was recent. That was on May 26th. We also had a day about social services, and sometimes it's the case that a mental health emergency, which is a mental health issue a person is having in the community, can become a security incident, or that an addiction issue can become, like because of the behaviors of the person, can become a safety incident. So, it might be, it could be the case that the board chooses to, I never want to tell you what to do, but it could be the case that you all come up with some language and write something about what you support and what you would like to see that is incorporated into the working group's report. It could be also that your board chair or somebody from the membership speaks at the upcoming meeting. So we take oral testimony and written testimony, and if there are things of importance to you, that's certainly relevant to this group. Certainly other organizations have been giving us written statements on various topics.
And just because you're going off the board doesn't mean that you can't write up something and attend the meeting on the 28th, right? Was it Kathy, 28th?
Yeah, it is the 28th.
On security, those of you, especially like Max, that you've been with the library and know all of the ins and outs and the problems that you face.
Kathy, I have a question about the breadth and scope of the word security, because I can see that it can mean a bunch of different things. Mm-hmm. And as a matter of fact, I was actually thinking of something that happened a long time ago at our library around security. There was a local person who was coming into buildings and stealing money. And so some of the people, like particularly at that point in time, and many times in our library, because we're so small, there's only one person in the library. And at that point in time, that one person felt nervous and scared about being in the library alone. And then there was a discussion of whether we needed to have some sort of an alarm system or something like that. So I was looking at I understand that there's all different definitions of what is security, but I just wanted to know if that type of security is included in this other idea of security.
Yeah, I think the language that has been approved by the House and the Senate, and the specific miscellaneous bill is waiting for the governor's signature. The way that it was framed was in terms of safety. So I don't think that they used the word security, but it certainly is the case in my experience serving the public and managing a branch library or working in a library that safety and theft and the feelings of safety, if you've had the violation of a theft in your workspace or in your public library, is significant. Yes. Having had that happen where I worked previously. So I do think it's pretty broad. So probably the legislature was thinking, my sense is typically when people think about safety in libraries, they think first about public safety in libraries, and that people can safely use the library for getting information, learning, sharing ideas, public discourse. The space of the public library is a place where you want to be able to freely exchange ideas. It's this, it's a limited public forum, but it's this place of being able to look up whatever you want to look up. So for me, a lot of this seems like it's intertwined with intellectual freedom issues in terms of the collections, in terms of the presenters, in terms of the public meetings that might be taking place. And do people feel comfortable coming to the library regardless of what opinion or viewpoint they have? And sharing that, learning about it, having a feeling that they can do that, they can pursue intellectual freedom with a privacy if they're doing it independently, but that they can convene and discuss things. I think what's concerning with the Lyndonville incident is the idea that people are peaceably gathered just reading some poems. Now, if those poems were conservative Christian poems, or if those poems are LGBTQ poems, or the poems are whatever, one should be able to meet with a group of like-minded people and read some poems in the library. One would think. So, how does this intellectual freedom come into play with the feeling of safety, and what is it that we're trying to promote? My view is that at the department, we want to promote the pursuit of intellectual freedom, the sharing of ideas by everyone, and that everybody feels safe doing that in the space, both the public and the staff.
And isn't it problems around the state that some of them that have the drag? What's the drag?
The drag queen story time is something. So just to give some context, in our state, there have been a number of situations where libraries have hosted LGBTQIA+ folks, have tried to host drag queen story times. I think some of you on the board are aware of these incidents in your own communities, and it's caused kind of a backlash. And then sometimes a library doesn't feel like they can host it because they don't have enough people to deal with the crowds that might come. And so that's something too, like, if the solo librarian is a concern, how does the board recommend that we address that? How to make sure that people have access to the programs. It's tough in a small library with one staff member, or very small staff, especially. At a bigger library, you have kind of a group of staff, there together who can protect the speech and also protect the rights of the protesters to protest. I mean, the protesters have rights too here. It's not that protesting is not okay at the library, but doing it in the right area and making sure people can come in and making sure that nobody feels harassed, and that if a crime is committed, that we engage law enforcement, all of those things.
Okay, so any other comments on this? Because they're going ahead with that study. And then when's the report? You said the report's due in November, right?
It's currently due at the beginning of November, but there's some hope that it would change to the 20th of December. And I do want to say, as far as the studying of this particular issue, there's not data. We're decentralized. There's no reason that a library would report every single security incident, every single safety concern to the department. The big ones you might see in a local paper, you might hear about from library staff, somebody might call for guidance on how to address it, but we don't quantify or take notes. There is not going to be a Department of Libraries report. We have no data on this that I'm aware of. And any stories we have are kind of anecdotal, and they're also usually told in a confidential way to us. So it feels funny, like if we did have consultants who had notes, it would feel funny to divulge all of that. But we don't have any numeric idea of this, of how pervasive it is, because normally the library director is addressing the issues of staff safety, and the board is addressing the issues of staff safety with the director, and then local law enforcement is responding to the library or not if they're not called. And it's all done at a local level. This is really a locally addressed concern typically.
Yeah, but I assume the study will probably make some recommendations on how the libraries possibly could deal with that, or.
Yeah, based on what we hear in the public testimony, and in the public comment.
Right.
So again, if the board had something to share collectively or individually, if you wanted to share written comments as members of the board or just as community members, that would be welcome.
Okay.
Or if you have any suggestions based on your experience that you'd like me to bring to the working group, and say these are some ideas that the board has for you of recommendations that could be made.
Okay. And are there any other questions on any other topic whatsoever? Because we still have scheduled 29 minutes, but we don't have to do it. That would be a record if we don't. But any other concerns? Once again, I'd like to thank the three outgoing members for your service, and wish we could name it, but hey, the governor's office has folks in mind, which is a real step forward. And I thank all of you for the support, because we did work with the policies, and then we got it, well, with Kathy's help, a good way whenever we have a vacancy or know we're going to have a vacancy, how to post it through the state, through Human Services. And when we couldn't find anybody to do it, we had what, altogether 8, right, people that applied. And we were able to go through them with the resumes, simply send a referral over to the governor's office, and they picked out of the list that they had referred to us.
I have some parting words.
Please. Yeah.
I want to echo Debbie that I think we leave the state library in very good hands. So I want to thank you.
Makes you feel good, right? You can, so you know what is taken care of, and that they don't need me anymore. That's what I'm hoping. They don't need me anymore. I can go somewhere else.
But the other thing to keep in mind too is, we had the naming issues and all that stuff, but the library has been relocated during our tenure. Marty was starting that. Scott Murphy came on and first somebody mentioned him, the VHS building, and a number of us said, boy, that's a win-win situation. And I think I've been down there. You've got a wonderful facility. And as I learned when the governor cut the ribbon on the opening there, that VHS and the state board, the Department of Libraries used to be co-located years ago. So so not only the kind of camaraderie and professional camaraderie of the staff, but the fact that you now have a facility I think people can be very comfortable in, and folks that visit can find parking, which is a lot better than Montpelier, and a much superior facility to what Berlin would have been. Boy, that was a flat tire of an idea. So I'm really happy that all this is sugared on down this way. And again, I thought we mentioned that thing. I forgot about that, but that co-location, and Tom McMurdo mentioned it earlier too.
And
we had COVID. We had to get through COVID. And besides that, everything was just fine. And I will ask this question. I know we wanted to get together, and we're going to get together in the October meeting, but what are your opinions, with the Teams call, the virtual calls versus there? I know my opinion, because I'm blind and I can't see anyway, but would you think that one meeting a year, and we used to do that with the Able Library, always did it in October, that would be an in-person meeting and all the others would be virtual? What is your feeling about that? I'll ask that of everybody, including the outgoing members.
Well, I was actually going to bring that up because this is Linda, because I really loved going around in the before times. I really loved going around to different libraries in the state. that said, it was, sometimes the drive was 2 hours to get from southern Vermont to central or northern Vermont. So that was, it required a significant commitment of time, but it was wonderful to see those libraries. So, I think maybe doing a combination, Tom, as you just suggested, having some virtual and some in person. I don't know what that balance should be, but I do like having the opportunity to get out of my own little town library and see what other libraries are doing. And certainly I can do that on my own, but it's nice to, and it's also nice to support those libraries by having the Board of Libraries meet there. I mean, how cool for the Thetford Library, for example, to have us meet in their space.
Yeah, maybe, and I'll talk to Kathy about that, and then the other, especially the new board meetings as well. Maybe you have two, one at the library in Barry, and then one, let's say the July meeting, the winter meeting. Didn't we have fun, Bruce, going through the snowstorm?
Yeah. Well, if Tom doesn't have anybody to drive him, I might be willing to drive Tom to the meeting as long as I get the mileage. But
that was the other thing. Yes.
And I jumped in here. Excuse me, Deb. I just want to say, Linda, you're right. Visiting the local libraries for our meetings had that je ne sais quoi kind of aspect to it, because you just picked up something. You picked up a vibe. You learned about challenges that may have been uniquely local. And it made this very grassroots system come alive to me and helped me as a member provide better advice to the state librarian about how to deal with this kind of big jelly ball that includes all these local libraries. So absolutely, hopefully we don't have any more pandemics, but if you can do this, do it. I heartily recommend it.
Okay. Duly noted. And speaking of reimbursement for mileage, still have some open there, Kathy, that Bruce, I think, a couple haven't gotten done. So have to see about fixing that.
Yeah, I have to look at the reimbursement form. I think mileage is on there. There's the $50 per diem, and so what we had talked about briefly, Tom, was the idea that we might host the next meeting, the October meeting, in person.
Yeah, definitely.
And that we would have the agenda kind of to orient people, and that would be one of the things definitely on the orientation schedule for the new board members and old. Like, we should do that. We should remind everybody once a year of how to do that. But if anybody would like reimbursement currently for meeting attendance and didn't get it, please let me know. I know that we've shared it periodically, but Adrian, we're looking at beautiful mountains. What's happening there?
Is that where your next meeting is going to be? I
certainly hope so.
Swiss Alps.
I just have a comment, which I was about to make on a different subject before we got onto where the meeting should be or whatever. And I just wanted to mention that I really have seen over the course of time serving on this board, the increased awareness, not of libraries, because libraries knew about the Department of Libraries, but of other organizations and within the towns, within the communities, within the state, and partly the money that you have been given the charge to dole out has really raised the awareness of the Department of Libraries, because every time I'm talking to some sort of something or other funder, some bank, whatever, they're all aware of it. So it's really a really interesting opportunity, challenge and opportunity for the Department of Libraries with that money to disperse.
And I want to just, today's the day where you'll hear me say this repeated theme. I want to thank the folks here at the department when I arrived, because some of this was in flight already. And I know that Tom, as the assistant state librarian, had been really advocating to go for these funds and the congressionally directed spending funds, getting a call from Senator Leahy's office saying, what do you think about going for some money? It's like, that's, they had a good relationship with our department. And I know that Tom had maintained those relationships, and it was great to come in and have that type of money coming toward us. You know, that was a wonderful thing to find, that we could potentially be supporting libraries in a way we haven't been able to before. So thank you to Tom and Jeanette and the team here for kind of advocating for that role, to be doing that. It's certainly additive to the normal goal.
Absolutely. So any other passing remarks or final remarks by anybody?
Apologies. My computer had a mind of its own.
Oh,
I'm sorry to miss what I just missed, but I'll catch up in the minutes.
okay. I was just asking, any other final remarks or whatever? If not, hey, I'll let you do it, Bruce. Need a motion to adjourn.
Okay,
That's
well,
what I do.
maybe I'll make a long speech. No, never mind. I move that we adjourn this meeting of the Department of Libraries.
Second.
The Department of Libraries, no.
I mean, excuse me, Board of
Kathy
Libraries.
has to stay there. Yeah.
Board of Libraries.
Yeah.
Second.
Take the rest of the day off. No, the Board of Libraries. Is there a second?
Yes, second.
It's a non-debatable motion. That's my standard statement every time. Okay, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed, just hang out, though you'll be cut off anyway, so that's good. I think that was unanimous.